is I-24 News, and I'm Natasha Kirchak. Thank you for joining us. Well, we have some major news. The U.S. and Iran appear to be closing in on a one-page memo to end the war. That's according to Pakistani sources involved in peace efforts. Now, this comes as U.S. President Donald Trump has pressed pause on Washington's Project Freedom mission in the Strait of Hormuz, pointing to what he's calling major progress in negotiations that are aimed at ending over 2 months of conflict with Iran. Take a look.
After weeks of escalating tensions in the Persian Gulf, U.S. President Donald Trump says that Washington is pausing Project Freedom, the effort designed to help trapped commercial vessels move through the Strait of Hormuz. Trump posted his announcement on Truth Social, saying, based on the request of Pakistan and other countries, the tremendous military success that we have had during the campaign against the country of Iran, and additionally, the fact that great progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran, we have mutually agreed that while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed. While the escort operation is now on hold, Trump says the broader blockade against Iran remains fully in place. At the White House, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the military phase of the campaign has officially ended.
Operation Epic Fury is concluded. We achieved the objectives of that operation. I'm not going to, we're not cheering for an additional situation to occur. We would prefer the path of peace. What the president would prefer is a deal. He would prefer to sit down, work out a memorandum of understanding for future negotiations that touches on all the key topics that have to be addressed, a full opening of the strait so the world can get back to normal. He preferred that be negotiated through the route that Steve and Jared have been working and that all of us have been supporting.
The White House reportedly believes it's getting close to an agreement and expects an Iranian response in the next 48 hours. Despite the diplomatic push, tensions in the Gulf remain high. Iran's Revolutionary Guards are warning ships to stay within routes approved by Tehran, while the UAE has been targeted by missiles and drones. Only a small number of commercial ships have successfully crossed the Strait of Hormuz under U.S. protection since the operation began, with major shipping companies still reluctant to send vessels through the narrow corridor. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Beijing Wednesday for talks with the Chinese foreign minister, his first trip to China since the war began. China, one of Iran's closest economic partners, is calling for a comprehensive ceasefire and renewed negotiations, while Washington hopes Beijing can pressure Tehran to ease its grip on the vital shipping lane. For now, the Trump administration says it prefers diplomacy over further military action, but both Washington and Israel are warning they may remain prepared to respond if the fragile ceasefire collapses.
Well, joining us now from Washington, D.C. is our senior U.S. correspondent, Mike Wagenheim. Mike, we are hearing reports now that the U.S. and Iran are closing in on a one-page memo to end this war. How significant is that? And what do we actually know about what that memo would include?
There's some confusing terminology, it seems, and not surprisingly, as we head into this next phase here of the war. And what does it actually mean to end the war? It appears this memo that's being reported on simply will set kind of the guidelines here for how talks are going to hopefully carry forward. It's not necessarily an end to the conflict. It's setting the parameters for the talks to come. And so, again, it's hard to kind of label exactly what that would entail. Keep in mind, even as we see the reports of what's in this memo, there's no mention of ballistic missile program. There's no mention of support for terror proxies. There's no mention of a number of issues that the Trump administration had said from the beginning were sort of red lines, in addition, obviously, to the nuclear program, which is at the core of this whole conflict here. And so much left to the imagination at this point as some of the details are sussed out. It is important to note about 20 minutes ago, President Trump put out a post on Truth Social. I'm quoting here. He said, assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to, which is perhaps a big assumption, president's words, not mine, the already legendary Epic Fury will be at an end, and the highly effective blockade will allow the Hormuz Strait to be open to all, including Iran. If they don't agree, the bombing starts, and it will sadly be at a much higher level and intensity than it was before. So again here, if you're that close to an agreement so much that you would pause Project Freedom, as President Trump did yesterday, unclear why he feels the need here to issue those types of threats this morning. So again, it's not always what it seems when it comes to the reports in the media here, and unclear if this supposed one-page memo is indeed kind of this close to the finish line to being signed as it would appear in reports this morning.
Right. Now, just briefly, Mike, Israel is not part of these talks at all. What risks is that ultimately going to create if a deal does move forward without Israel at the table?
I wouldn't say they're not part of the talks at all. I'm sure their thoughts and feelings are being taken into consideration here, but I think it's obvious this is an American-led effort, American-led talks, and President Trump will be the final one to make a decision here. However, to your question, it's concerning if indeed what I just said a few moments ago holds true, that the agreement does not touch on the ballistic missile program, which we found out during the course of this war is a more urgent matter than the nuclear program itself. Iran continues to build these ballistic missiles, ramps up production once again, which is to be expected if the war indeed does come to an end soon. They restock their missile launchers, and we're back in a situation here where Iran, maybe not in a nuclear capacity, but in a capacity with thousands and thousands of missiles, it was right back in a situation where they can threaten Israel, and the threat of conflict there is looming for the medium to long term again here. And so it would be concerning from Jerusalem's standpoint if the memo, again, only touches on the nuclear program itself and not these more, they were peripheral issues, but now more urgent issues like the missile program itself.
All right, Mike, thanks for joining us from D.C. We'll be back with you later this evening.